Fearscape Media Network, exploring the unknown, one podcast at a time.
Hello, Blanket Huggers. Stefan here, host of Fearscape Paranormal Podcast. As we take this week off to celebrate my birthday, we wanted to take a moment to introduce you to my other podcast here on the Fearscape Media Network. And that show is Misters of the Dark, a show that sees myself and my co-host, Lance Wayne, the man with no name, go over different horror topics, as outside of the paranormal, I have a big fascination and love for all things horror, whether it be movies, TV, books, etc. In this show, we've had a great opportunity to interview some incredible guests, such as horror artist Ricky Blaylock, as well as Grandpa himself from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre original film, John Dugan. But the episode I want to introduce you today is one of my favorite episodes from the run so far. We got a chance to interview Michael Berryman. This is the actor made famous in The Hills Have Eyes, and so on and so forth. But anyways, this is this episode of Misters of the Dark, featuring an interview with Michael Berryman, and I hope you have an opportunity to listen to this show and enjoy it as much as I do. It's a whole nother side of me that most people don't get to see, my comedic side and my love of horror. If you're interested in listening to more of Misters of the Dark, you can go to www.fearscapemedia.com/MOTD podcast, or simply look up Misters of the Dark anywhere you stream your podcasts. Anyways, I will catch you guys on the flip side, and enjoy.
Coming to you from nowhere, a suburb of parts unknown, your ghoulish hosts for an evening of terror, Stefan Gearhart and Lance Wayne, the Misters of the Dark.
Good evening, dear friends. Welcome to another terrifying episode of Misters of the Dark, the greatest horror podcast in the history of horror podcasting. As always, we are beaming directly to you from nowhere, a suburb of parts unknown, and I'm your headmister, Lord Stefan Gearhart.
I'm your co-mister with the dark and the no-name and the Lance Wayne and the hey lady.
Okay, before we continue, I suppose you all deserve some sort of explanation as to why my lesser half is impersonating and at the same time butchering the legacy of great performers past and present.
I'm only laughing on the outside. My smile is just skin deep.
Just stop.
If you could see inside, I'm really crying. You might join me for a weep.
Lance, shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Okay, you see, last weekend after our weekly binge watch and brood, I stupidly sent Lance down to the village video store to return our VHS copy of the first season of Sisters.
You go in the cage. Cage goes in the water. You go in the water. Sharks in the water. Arr, shark.
Shut up, Lance. Shut up! Well, okay, while making the trek back home, he got himself bitten by one of those pesky little buggers we all commonly refer to as the acting bug.
On the good ship, lollipop, sweet trip to the candy shop.
Okay, that one's pretty good. That one's pretty good, but still, shut up! Okay, I've tried everything. I've tried exorcisms. I've tried sage burning. I even used the last of our good leeches to see if a loss of blood would help.
The blood is the life, Mr. Enfield.
Obviously, all were unsuccessful. That's why I've sent for someone who has much more experience with this type of thing than I. Someone who can drive out this thespian demon who's possessing our dear co-mister, and most importantly, is a card-carrying member of SAG. Dear friends, will you join me in welcoming horror actor Michael Berryman?
Hi, doggy.
A little cheer on a Sunday. It's a little something from Petaluma, California, a local brewery. I believe in supporting your local ma and pa businesses.
Now more than ever.
Now more than ever, that are going bankrupt, and don't let them get gobbled up by the realm.
Yeah.
So it's Sunday, we buried our old 20-year-old cat yesterday. So today is.
Sorry to hear that.
Sorry.
Kiki, 20 years.
To
Good
Kiki.
cat.
Oh wow.
But yeah, we were both in Kentucky, but I recently moved to Arizona. So I
hope it worked for you. It's hot it's pretty freaking hot. Yes. There, I can't do that anymore.
Yes.
Yeah. We're in the middle of an ice storm down here in Louisville, in Kentucky. So.
Oh, you said that. You said that correctly. Louisville. Yeah. Ben Dixon. A big shout out to Ben Dixon. He does a great show. Blood and Ink show. I loved that part of Kentucky. I had friends from Slidell.
I've got friends from Slidell.
Yeah, Slidell. Those are some pretty mellow people, man. Yep. I had some neighbors that were from Slidell, and they were good neighbors, good people, good folk down there in the South. Not everybody is what you hear. Not everybody is a cliche.
No.
Everybody's
And definitely shout out to Ben. We've got Ben and his wife will be on the show in the next
cool
as well. Yeah, they're good folks for sure. So again, Michael, we very much appreciate you taking your time sharing a Sunday with us. Happy Valentine's Day.
Yeah, happy it is.
Yeah, we're remodeling the upstairs. I told my wife I wouldn't be buying chocolate ice cream pie or flowers because we need every extra dollar to go to with
our just moving
the upstairs
out here.
Remodel is birthday presents, Christmas, Thanksgiving, and everything else.
Oh yeah, gotta love it, man.
So what's it like to be? You guys look like you're still in your 20s. What's that like?
Oh, 20s. I'm 41.
I'm 40.
Yes.
Oh wow. Okay. After 29.
32.
If it's I can't trust anybody over 29, over 30, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't believe that BS.
Yep. I live as positive as possible, to be honest with you. It's been my goal for a long time, is to just be as positive as possible and enjoy life.
I live negatively as possible.
Well, you should draw the curtain behind you because you're backlit really.
Oh, sorry.
Really hot. Oh no, it's for your fans, not for me. I can deal with all kinds of shit. It's the window behind you.
I'm trying to block it with my big head.
Your big fat head works. That's perfect. Don't move. Okay, you got your framing just right. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Yeah, stay right there. That's your zone. You're on a tight lens.
Do not move, Lance.
Don't you move. Well, when it lights up, I kind of like it. I look like I'm a saint or something like.
Oh, no, that's a good pose there off the sun.
That's just that blonde hair, man.
Yeah, dream on, brother, dream on.
Oh man, this is great.
So what do you want to cover today?
Everything.
Everything.
The fact that I'm 6'5", so I'm taller than you. How does that make you feel?
Doesn't affect me one way or the other.
Good. That's what I like to hear.
There, and I'm here. And besides, if you're taller than me and we have an issue, if I make that kneecap go to the wrong spot, you're going to be hopping on one leg.
Yes.
I just had knee surgery a year and a half ago, so.
Dude.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Drop like a sack of potatoes.
I'll tell you what, though, as someone who's tall, one of my biggest weird things about myself is anyone that's taller than me, I get really intimidated by, because I'm not used to looking up at someone, and it just weirds me out. I don't know what it is. If you're going up an escalator, you must be terrified. all the time.
Man, you're easy.
You can't trust moving stairs, man. That's like one of my favorite jokes is, like from this old cartoon, the escalator stopped and the kid was like, "Dad, help, the escalator's stuck." He's just standing there and he's like, "It's stairs now."
Oh, that's cute. There was it's either Far Side or I think it was Far Side, and it showed it was a cartoon where people going down the escalators and their feet stick to the thing and they're being shredded and
Oh yeah. Oh man.
Even at airports, when it gets to the last two steps where the teeth are and it's going underneath the teeth, I always step off.
I do too.
Yeah,
I get nervous.
I don't know why. It's just something you do.
Well, it's like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure when they're like, "Socrates, watch your robe, man."
Yeah.
I grew up with Mad Magazine. You grew up with
too.
Yeah.
I love Mad Magazine. I just actually got a subscription recently to Mad because
a prescription.
Yes.
I thought they stopped publishing.
They did, but then they got a new publisher, and so it's back out like every 2 months or something like that. But yeah, I got
a great magazine. I loved it. I grew up with beatniks, surfing, early '60s. I lived near Venice, not too far from Venice Beach.
Oh, wow.
I'm actually characterized in the in a Mad Magazine issue where they do One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
I was about to ask. I was like,
there's a little caricature. It doesn't really look like me, but it is my character, which
that's
I think
fantastic.
is freaking cool.
Yeah,
that is super cool. I absolutely love that.
Well, in sci-fi, I actually sent a letter to DC Comics because it was the episode of Superman. Well, I mean, it was the issue where Superman, and they're explaining when he arrives to Mom and Pa Kent, and they take the baby blankets, the yellow, red, and blue, and they're hanging on a clothesline, and it shows Pa Kent poking at him with a pitchfork and shooting them with a shotgun, and they're invulnerable. So I wrote a letter saying, if they're invulnerable, how did Ma Kent cut them up and stitch them into his outfit?
Yeah.
He actually sent me I don't have it anymore. They actually wrote me back and sent me a letter, because back then we did letters. Didn't have internet.
Yeah.
and they sent me a letter saying, "Michael, you got to cut us a break."
Hey, now they just say they just say kryptonite scissors.
I wrote them back and I said, well, "What if there was a sewing kit in the rocket pod that had mildly radioactive kryptonite needles and scissors?"
That's what I was gonna say. Kryptonite scissors, kryptonite needles.
Yeah, sure.
All kinds.
That would be that would be the blue kryptonite turns into a bizarro.
Yes.
There's different colored kryptonites. I love it.
You see, now you're on my tear. I'm a huge Superman fan, so
I love DC.
You got me now. But yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Like when he got
DC stands for
what?
The capital. I get one bad one. That was very bad.
But yeah, that's he went to Star Labs one time, had to get surgery or whatever. That's what they had to do, is get like a kryptonite knife to cut him open to get in.
Right.
Batman's still better. Batman's still the man.
Shut up. He doesn't shave with his laser eyes, okay? That's Superman shaves with his laser eyes. Hits a mirror, it bounces back,
Superman was born with all of his powers. Batman had to develop them.
No. He was not born with all of his powers. He was born on Krypton with no powers, and then
that's correct. He had to have a yellow sun. Yeah, he needed the yellow sun to initiate. I love the Bizarros when they would show, oh boy, the trash men are delivering trash to. I mean, it was such a shoot on Suburbia. My brother and I, when we were very young, I actually drew up a costume outfit. We wanted to be Batman and Robin, and there was we didn't know about Kevlar or anything like that. But I figured some kind of bodysuit under the suit that would, stop a bullet or whatever. And then then I'm very science oriented, so I figured, well, it needs something to absorb the trauma and blah, blah, blah. But we actually wanted to do that as kids. So encourage the imagination of your youth, because it helps.
Oh yeah,
definitely.
Absolutely. We used to stack old mattresses that we could find and jump off the roof trying to see who could
Of course.
fly.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the 80s for me.
I did that last week, actually. Didn't work.
That's amazing.
You
What
get
that
small
Kentucky
cardboard
bourbon does.
refrigerator boxes, and I put them in the backyard, cut windows for them with flaps, and put some blankets and a cushion in there, and have the dog with the dog water and the food. I'd sleep out in the backyard in a cardboard box. It was wonderful.
Yeah. Yep. And then, as actors, we end up having to do that anyways.
Yeah.
No, I lived in my van for many years until after Cuckoo's Nest. Yeah.
Phew.
Oh,
It's in my book. My book is about 3/4 finished. I've got about another 3 weeks to finish writing it. Then I sent it off to my manager, and she sent it off to the publisher. But first, I sent it off to the WGA to get it registered, of course.
Oh.
For the final version. It's very, very interesting.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
I do have a website.
Yeah, definitely.
michaelberryman.com, and you can get some cool stuff there. And I'll be letting everybody know when they can get the book.
Great. We will as well, because we would be very
definitely.
interested.
I wrote notes on how to reach you.
Good. we are all about that, man. We love that stuff.
Well, you lived on a wolf sanctuary for 10 years, didn't you?
Off and on, I've been associated with them for decades. I did live there for about 3 years, but I've known Tanya Carmoni at Wolf Mountain Sanctuary. It's a rescue.
Uh-huh.
They don't do a breeding program. They've never been highly funded.
Yeah.
There have been promises to go to Montana, Wyoming, Alaska, blah, 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 but it never comes through. But they do good work. They're out near Big Bear, east of LA, in a town called Lucerne Valley, which is a little impoverished, but they're up there where the mountain meets the desert, and the wolves love it. And at least they have a place to chill and not be dead. I'm very huge on preserving the natural world, the oceans, the air, the forest. When I was very young, my grandmother would tell me stories about my great-grandfather, who was a doctor from Germany, and he spoke more than 3 or 4 languages, and they lived in the Dakotas before it was statehood, so he was very good friends with the Native American Hudson Bay tribe. And back then, you would do apothecary your medicines. You would use them from herbs, from plants, from minerals, and you would make your own medicines. There was no pharmacies, so the importance of this tale is the saving of our rivers and streams.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that, they'd say, well, they're rednecks and they're hunters. No, cut that crap. They're people that know how to be self-sufficient. I've lived that life. So the point is, you don't want, if you're going to dam a river, then you make it an easy way for fish to go across, and you don't use it as a toilet, which is what, even in The Simpsons, Montgomery Burns, perfect example, of how short-sighted greed is very bad. So anyway, I remember meeting some Native Americans and sharing a story about how when my great-grandfather passed away, the last thing that the Hudson Bay tribe did was wait for the white man to do the services in Grafton, North Dakota, and then they showed up in full battle regalia because they honored him as a chief. They would come over to our house, to my relative's house, and they would bring Christmas presents, which were basically moccasins. And they were even midwifing for the children that were being born at the house. And my grandmother and her sister would stay up, looking out the window to see if they could find them, see them arrive and leave the gifts. They'd always fall asleep, and then in the morning, of course, there would be. But he when my grandmother Sophie, this is in my book, was ill with fever, his next door neighbor was the Mayo brothers, Charles and Frank Mayo. Their father started the Mayo Clinic and all of that. And the brothers started the first patent, this according to my grandmother, the first U.S. patent for patent medicines, which is kind of like medicines for profit.
Yeah.
As opposed to the Hippocratic oath of do no harm, and my father was a brain surgeon. When he died, he put it in his will not to sue people for their inability to pay the fact they got a brain tumor or whatever, and they have a lot of doctor bills.
Wow.
So that's called compassionate care.
Yeah.
Supposed to do. These days we know how it's corporate, and they'll sue you and take everything away. You have to sign it off to somebody else to protect your assets. That being said, the males couldn't get her better, so they said make arrangements for her funeral. And they said, okay, sign on this piece of paper saying that I will take over her. I'm a doctor and I'm her father. I will take over her care, as per the state laws. Right. And they said fine. So the first thing he did was take all of their medicines and chuck them. And then he had sent somebody on horseback to go contact the healers of the Native Americans, and they showed up and they walked along the river. These are the rivers in the Dakotas before they were polluted and dammed and filled with pollution. Yeah. There's something called silt, and if you learn in history class as a kid. The Tigris-Euphrates area, Egypt, etc., the Nile, and Africa and South America, you have the other rivers. Well, rivers are supposed to flood, and when they flood, they deposit silt, and silt has trace minerals, and those trace minerals need to be in the plants that we consume. Why? Because those trace minerals have a conversation with the cells in your body and the organs in your body and the systems in your body, so the body can heal itself. But greed got in the way over time to where it's almost illegal to have home birth, etc. So they showed him all of these herbs and plants that you can turn into medicine, and they were growing in the silt area of the rivers, the banks of the river after the water recedes. And that's where you get your best soil and your healthiest plants. Doing farming with just replacing NPK, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, without the trace minerals, it makes the plants look healthy and green, vibrant, but they're missing all those vital nutrients. I've been an advocate of correct health, so to speak, ever since I knew who Jack LaLanne was. Yeah. Yeah, let's handcuff you, and you put a rope in your mouth, and then you do a butterfly swim from Alcatraz, towing a dinghy with the press in it across the currents, where people who escaped from Alcatraz, who had been pumping out in the gym, drowned, and this guy did it bound.
He was something else, man.
His mouth. And he had a show called the Jack LaLanne Show every morning on TV back in the early black and white TV days, where he would take a chair and show you how to use your whole body with the chair to be vibrant and healthy and learn about nutrition. I see advertising on TV for, I'm not against a value meal. If you want to go have some junk food once in a while, yeah, but it ain't nutrition. So
no. Unfortunately.
That being said, I raise a glass to it's not whiskey, it's beer. I don't care.
Well, you mentioned your dad, and I noticed you had said he was out in Hiroshima and all that stuff. Did he have stories to you about things that he saw and things like that? Because that's what I'm sure is very interesting.
Yeah.
Well, he was a Navy surgeon attached to the 333 Marine Corps, 3rd Division, 3rd Company, 3rd Battalion. And he was on a destroyer. And at the end of the war, we dropped 2 experiments, the 2 bombs.
2 experiments, yeah.
And he was on a secret mission, being an MD and a neurologist, to go to Hiroshima at ground zero after they dropped the bomb and see what kind of effect it had on human beings medically. I have pictures, which I will never share, of walls with shadows of vaporized human beings.
Yeah, I've heard of that. Yeah, I've heard of those. Yeah.
And these were civilians. which beckons another aspect of storytelling, which we do as actors and artists and people in our industry. And there's always idiots that use television as a pulpit, and yet they bash what we do when we do something that they don't particularly like because it affects the agenda that they have, so they can get money in their pockets, and yet they're charlatans and they're hypocrites. Yeah. That being said, I always felt that they could have just said, here's an atoll within your round, take a look, boom, this is what we can do. I know we only had 2, and they said it saved lives, but they never should have let the genie out of the bottle, in my opinion.
I agree.
Yeah.
So when my dad went there, of course, it was still a hot zone, so he was highly radiated.
Yeah.
Oh.
And he came back home, and I was conceived, and I was born with various birth defects. And the creases in my skull are where they literally cut my top of my head off. And well, I'm sure they didn't put it in a box somewhere on the table and look at it, but literally the skull was not expanding. So they had to cut fissures to where the brain would grow. And then they took pieces of bone from my pelvis, used them as spacers. So it would all kind of knit together. And my balance was good. The ends of my fingers and toes are my knuckles. Big whoop. I can't sweat. Okay, fine. Dealt with a lot of things that are in my book. I tell it straight up. Grateful to be 72 years old.
Yeah.
Yay, buddy.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to use a kryptonite needle, so.
True.
It was on back order from Amazon in the future.
Oh, wow. Man, highly experimental stuff.
But yeah, I can't imagine what your dad went through. Like my grandfather was in the invasion of Normandy. He was in the first wave, and his entire battalion died. He was the only one in his entire platoon that survived, and he covered himself with his friends' bodies until the next wave came in. And he murdered a Nazi that was looking through, and he had that helmet. We still have the helmet. And forward, he said he would never, no violence, nothing. He was a Golden Globes boxer in the Army, and he quit boxing, everything, no more violence, no more death, and we still have that. But he struggled with World War II, and I can't imagine. So here's your dad going through the war, and then on top of that having to go to Hiroshima. It's like that's like 2 traumas in one, and the fact that he lived a life and had children and managed is remarkable to me.
Your story is remarkable. Those are aspects of humanity and interaction with the intersection of I would say a situation beyond our control, or something that we are the unexpected. That intersection allows you a space to make a decision, and those decisions will define your moral compass and your humanity level, and to what degree you're willing to step out and do what you have to do. Those are choices and decisions throughout our lives. We look back, we reflect, we sometimes have to forgive ourselves. That's always a tough one, but it's called life, and these are things that everybody deals with, and that's why I'm very grateful that we have Netflix and all of this programming. There's one I can't think of it, begins with an A. It's on Netflix. It's about a kid in high school. I think he's what's the word? Can't think of the word. He's got a neurological problem where not acoustic. It begins with an A. What's the word I'm looking for?
Autistic?
Autistic, thank you. Yeah. Okay. But he functions. So there was a time when that was all taboo. I understand how the TV was entertaining for the housewives, whatever. Everybody wanted to forget about Korea and World War II and
is that the Atypical? Was that the show?
Atypical, Atypical. Great, amazing content.
Yeah, that's Michael Rappaport. Yeah, I love Michael Rappaport. So
right.
He's in that, yeah.
And then I watch fun stuff like Mom,
Yeah.
Right.
Mom
Yeah.
is great. I love Mom. It's I mean, to have somebody in a wheelchair, really? Wow, we've come so far. I remember doing A Highway to Heaven and working with Michael Landon, and we hit it off very well. I worked for him on 2 episodes, and I actually got involved with. There was a gentleman. He would hire people with disabilities. He was one of the first producers to do that.
Wow.
And I remember when I think I was getting. I was looking for an agent, and I had a. No. I was with a friend of mine. David Shelton is his name. He's a magician, and he's also, I believe, he's a Shriner, and he works with children with disabilities. I've done a lot of work with school districts, et cetera, in various groups, and he had when the internet was just getting started, he wanted to have actually a cable show called the Global Good News Network. Nothing but good news.
I like
so
that.
I went with him.
Yeah.
Went with him to a pitch at a fancy building with an office, and there were these producers there, and my friend, he had brochures printed out and everything, and he says, "Here's my deal. It's 24/7, the Global Good News Network, nothing but good news, uplifting stuff." And I'll never forget it. One of these suits put his hands behind his head, leaned back in his chair, and here's what he said. "What kind of Pollyanna sugar-coated Michael Landon crap is this?" That's what he said. And I looked at David and I said, "May I respond?" And he says, "Sure." And I told him he should be ashamed of himself, straight up. Number 2, he was being offered a wonderful opportunity. Number 3, I said, I go to conventions and I meet people from every walk of life, those that are poor, those that are rich, those that can jump, those that can't. And one of the things that they always contact about is, they like to be scared, they like sci-fi, like some of the stuff that we do, but they want stuff that deals with the human condition. And this guy is offering you a wonderful platform, and you're just wiping your ass with it. I said, "There's something seriously wrong with you. You need therapy." And I said, "My friend will find a way to do this, and we're leaving now," and we left. So people sometimes, I don't scratch my head and spend too much time trying to analyze them, because I would never get anything done.
No.
I won't comment other than say what's happening in today's time and space intersection. I'm really hoping that it's going to drive the conversation toward the center, which is the heart. My father would say things to me. I used to go on house calls with him. He actually was a doctor who had a black bag with
Wow.
all kinds of liquids and pills and injectables that junkies love. So one night, I grew up around firearms and the proper way to handle them. I was also in the ROTC in college. My point being, one night I'm in the car and we're driving along, and he parks in the back of an alley and he says, "This is the house where I'm going to go into. What I have in my bag, my patient's husband would love to, have it in his arm." Mm-hmm. And my dad had polio, and he would need some help in a fight, so to speak.
Right.
So in my lap was a Smith & Wesson 38, and I said,
Wow.
We used to reload. I knew exactly what they do. And he said, "I'll open the curtain in her window, and if you hear a scuffle, just come in. Don't shoot the guy, but if you have to save my life,
Wow.
do what you have to do." And I was 14 years old. So I don't think I blinked the whole time he was in the house, but everything went well. My point is, sometimes reality can be very stark and in your face, and you need to really focus on what, why, and how much. That's kind of important. I used to see bumper stickers that would say, "The one that dies with the most toys wins." That's a pretty shallow
Yeah. Oh,
philosophy.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
They're
interesting.
usually on the back of BMWs.
Right.
Man.
It's interesting you're talking about the news thing, because I used to I'm an actor myself, and so of course we always have day jobs, and one of the ones that I had done this job where I worked for this company that transcribed news footage, and so that way if people wanted to see if their brand or person got referenced, they could contact us, we could send them the transcript, yada yada yada. Well, I would watch 8 to 10 hours of news footage a day and transcribe it. Well, 99% of what you see is just horrific stuff. And I had the St. Louis market and I had the Detroit market, and I was just crime and murder. And this was early 2000s. It was just crime and murder and crime and murder and crime and murder. And I mean, it was hard not to take home. But then every Monday, I would get teen kids news. Like, so in the midst of all of this, like crime and murder, I would get teen kids news, which was all just positive news. It was all good.
Yeah.
And it was like a refresher for me.
Yeah.
Every week I was so thankful, because man, my heart was just bleeding, like watching all this news. And then here's teen kids news, and it saved me. I'll tell you what, it saved me. If I could have had that 24/7 good news network, I would have been so thankful. I'll tell you that right now.
Great, that's beautiful. It's a great story. Thank you for sharing. That's exactly the point. It's exactly the point. Wow.
Yeah. I 100% agree. I much prefer the good stories, and it can get overwhelming.
Well, it's not a Pollyanna head in the sand existence. It's just that we need a recharge, and we need to not give up on humanity, because I used to read a lot of science fiction when I was young, and there's a great short story by H.G. Wells, and it's in his anthology. It's called The Machine Stops, and it's about the world after nuclear war. Everybody lives underground, and this was written in the 50s. Mm-hmm. So everybody's in their cubicle, and they communicate via a TV screen. And there's a guy, it's a love story about a guy and a gal. And the guy works in the archives way down in the tunnels where nobody goes anymore. And he reads books, and it's information that's stored forever. And he finds out about things like the blue sky, clouds, wind on your face, rain, hot, warm, cold, animals, smells, things of that nature. And his girlfriend is going like, wow, this is amazing, because everybody living underground, it's like, perfect. Everything is controlled, ambient temperature, and people push a button, and you push a button and milk and honey flows. I mean, everything is provided by the machine. Well, the machine starts to break down. And over time, they had learned where the tunnels go to the surface. And sure enough, one day, everybody's pushing, they're demanding being serviced, and the machine starts to falter. But then people are out of their cubicles into the corridors, etc., and it becomes chaotic, and there's violence, and it's terrible. So they escape, and they meet up, and they make their way to the surface, and it's like beautiful, Adam and Eve, and they figure they'll carry on humanity, and this is wonderful. But they've been breathing filtered air for so long that just the ambient air on the surface of the earth is more than their bodies could handle, and they drown in each other's arms as the blood rushes into their lungs, and they drown in their own demise.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's
okay. That was sweet, but it rings true. I mean, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. So, the idea of people poo-pooing, conservation and nature society and science. I mean, I can't even have a conversation with those types of individuals, because they're pretty lost. Yeah. And as long as they don't have the powers to make decisions, then perhaps things will be better. I've been like with the wolves. I remember working in Rome, in Italy, and I went to the Villa Borghese Zoo, and I remember talking to the zookeepers and the people that tended for the animals. And people that work in zoos, they understand there's a network of genetic diversity that they share with breeding programs. So extinction doesn't happen. Unfortunately, I think all the great beasts, etc., will be gone in our great-grandchildren's future, which is a sin, in my opinion. I'm an ex-altar boy, enough said there.
Me
Don't
too.
do that. Don't do that. But the point being, I think there's two things that cause most pain and suffering in the world. Number one is if I draw a line in the dirt, people die. Yep. If I tell you that the God I pray to is different than your God, people die. Those concepts need to be discarded. We're all the same. I mean,
yep.
Or was your grandparents the Greys? I mean,
right.
It's funny, divide and conquer. I mean, there's so many simple decisions that have caused discomfort throughout human history. And you look at animals, the ones that are most like our misbehavior are insects.
Yeah.
So go figure.
Yep.
Well, there's a really good quote, and reminds me of this, and I've really this has always stuck with me ever since I read it. But the graphic novel, The Watchmen, there's a quote from it that says something like, everything in the world fits together like a puzzle except people.
I like that.
Yeah, and I mean it's the truth. I've always like thought of that, and it's true because wolves, wolves don't. If a wolf is slightly grayer than another wolf, I don't think they. I don't even think they notice.
Well, there is alpha and beta, and there is no murder or orphans in wolf society. There's a famous true story of some people in Alaska or the northwest of Canada in a snowmobile race, and a guy during a blizzard got off track and crashed and broke his leg. And at night, the wolf pack would come and they would dig underneath him and sleep on top of him to keep him warm. They would bring him a fresh kill, feed him mouth to mouth, and they would drag him toward where they knew the humans were. They had a search party looking for him, and 2 days later, the search party found the guy, and there were some wolves by them, and they went to shoot at the wolves, and they all ran off except the alpha male, and he stayed close to this guy to protect him. And his snowmobile suit had been torn up a little bit because they were using it to pull him and drag him toward the humans for his own safety. And they kept the other predators away, wolverines, etc. And the guy had enough energy to raise his hand and say, "Don't shoot the wolf." And then they said, "Look what they did to you." And I said, "No, you don't understand. Get me to safety and warm me up, give me some food in my belly, and I'll tell you what really happened." So when I hear of people, flying in an airplane and shooting wolves from the sky, it's so inappropriate, it's so wrong. I know ranchers from all over the country, and they go, "Well, the wolves will come in, they'll take an animal once in a while." Yeah, then you fill out a form and you can get compensated. But if you go back a little farther in history, there used to be no railroads.
Right.
Yeah.
People were nomadic. They followed the bison. When I had the honor to meet and get to become good friends with Will Sampson from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, who was a Yakima Native American.
Yeah.
We shared many stories. My grandfather's stories with the Native Americans and the stories about the white buffalo. He actually was in the movie The White Buffalo. The Laurentiis did it, but it was kind of hokey. It was not up to the level of spiritual relevance and humanity rising that he would hope it would have been. But the symbiotic relationship between tribal people and traveling, the bison would eat grass and poop. And they would move from west to east and east to west. And what they did to the prairie was about 30 feet of topsoil. So the invaders, and we were invaders, came. And I'm proud of my heritage because I'm German, Swedish, and British and Spanish. And my family came and they didn't cause grief and pain and suffering. I'm proud of that. So when you have a country east and west, and they said we need to have the golden spike in the railroads, you get a free square mile for every mile of track left and right. So they laid a track. Yeah, and they put up the investment. I understand, and it's costly, but you can't just all of a sudden claim the mineral rights and all of this when you have nomadic people. So what happened was the railroads had to get rid of the bison because there were so many of them. In order to do that, they didn't have computers or TV or internet or anything to entertain themselves with. So the wealthy people would be in these hot, sweaty Pullman cars, swatting flies. And a company called the Winchester Rifle Company supplied them with all the ammunition and the equivalent of an Uzi. I mean, it was a lever action repeating rifle. And they would just pump lead into an ocean of bison. Okay. So they could get them out of the way so they could lay track, and a company could claim mineral rights 1 square mile on both sides of track. Well, what about the people that are migratory? Yeah. That are the people that fed us when we were starving in Delaware and back east. How soon we rewrite history and forget about that? Oh, them. Wow. You can't bury that behavior. There's consequences, and honesty. It's basically light versus dark.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to let in the light to see what the hell's going on, and if it's hell going on, then maybe you could pray and have some kind of guidance, and the guidance is light, because the light illuminates and it shows you the opportunities that you have to make a decision with your observations. And a lot of people have observational issues, in my opinion.
No,
what
definitely.
I mean by that is you're seeing things and you no, this is more comfortable. Decisions and actions by human beings that affect other life forms, including humans, sometimes require effort and work and roll up your sleeves, and it might not be comfortable, but we do it anyway.
Yeah.
So, I remember Christian Brando, Marlon Brando's son, when I met him. He had some issues and tissues to deal with, and so he was sent out with the Cousteau people, and he had the opportunity to be out on the ocean and learn about oceanography and the wonderful science of what goes on in our waters. It really humbled him, and it made a profound effect on his life. And I hope he's still doing well, Christian. But Smithsonian Institute, I think they still have something called Sea Secrets. If you go to their website, you might be able to get the Sea Secrets. I used to get those all the time. I was a scuba diver for 20 years, and
that's cool.
Saw some wonderful things. I actually got to body surf and catch waves with sea otters at Ventura County Line.
Oh man.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Oh, I bet. I've always said, like, the thing I think that hurts us most in our human evolution was this need for control, whether it be emotional control, physical control, this need to control. I mean, look, where most anxiety and depression comes from is a lack of feeling you have control, right?
Exactly.
And that has also, like, this obsession with control has kind of led to, just like you said, drawing a line in the sand, or saying my God is better than your God, or I control this. I don't care what you need. I'm controlling this situation. And that's been something.
Would you perhaps say that those decisions, those actions, I mean, there's a concept, then there is an estimation or an appraisal of the concept, and then there is the choice of action.
Yes.
And it's not this or that, it's many choices. Mm-hmm. And there's degrees of agreement within the realms of the information, and people would be well served to have a better analysis of where they are and what really affects them. Because, see, I grew up Catholic, and we I remember my father was Presbyterian. He was a very gifted surgeon, very prominent in the Los Angeles area. He couldn't marry my mother because she was Catholic. He had to get permission to be married in the Catholic Church from the Bishop of Los Angeles, who at the time was very much misbehaving, and over decades there were lawsuits, etc. Enough said. I was an altar boy. I know what it is I'm talking about. He was offended that he had to sign a binding contract to send us to extra money paid tuition to go to St. Martin or Tours, which is where I learned a lot, but that's where all the Hollywood Catholics sent their kids, the Hiltons, etc. And I knew all of them.
Yeah.
My point is, it's control.
Yeah.
And it's a fear-based control system. And if I can make you fearful, and then on the other hand, it's a Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's a Stockholm syndrome. So I'm sorry, but that's bullshit. So I'm going to cut to the chase and tell you something really funny and a lot of fun to do.
Okay.
Here it is.
All right.
Late at night, channel surf until you find one of these televangelists.
Oh, yeah.
I have done this on more than one occasion. And here's what you do. You call them up. And you say, here's what I tell them. I'm rich. I'm a widow. I have no heirs. You have inspired me. I want to give you all my money. You're doing the Lord's work. I want to know that you're live on TV. I want the guy in the green jacket to walk across the stage and whisper in the ear of the guy in the red jacket. And they'll do that. And then I'll go, okay, you're doing wonderful work. So I'm going to give you the bank account for all my money. It's $1.3 million. My lawyers will send over papers, give me an address. But I want you to have the money right away. They'll take it.
Oh, yeah.
So here's what you say.
Yeah.
Here's the number. The account number is 7734. And they'll go, that's not enough numbers. And I'll go, did you write it down on a piece of paper? Yes, I did. Hold it up to a mirror. What does that spell? And they'll go, well, that spells hell. And I go, yes, and that's where you're going. And then you can kind of add lip to that. and here's the payoff. You wasted 18 minutes of our valuable time. And I go, yeah, I did that for a reason, because I'm hoping that maybe that would have tied up all of your lines to somebody who was like I said, but actually I didn't have a lot of money, because you fleece people that are desperate, have no money, and you take it anyway, and you're a church, so you're tax-free. You are evil. You are evil. And I did that to tie up one phone line to hope that maybe somebody got a busy signal and the Holy Spirit would come in and intervene and heal them and allow them to know that you are Satan. Amen. Have a nice day. I gotta go.
Amen.
That's great.
I'm like, Lance and I are both improvisers too, so I'm like, let's record that.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
I'm totally down for that. Yeah.
Sometimes you have to be an SHIT disturber.
Exactly.
I mean, look, I'm sorry, but I'm not. The carpenter had muscles. He was no wimp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just say it, right?
Yep. Very, very.
I'm enjoying this very, very much, because I do about 100 of these a year, and most of the time it's what was this like? What was that like? And blah, 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 blah. But you guys are, you're deeper than I thought you would be.
Oh, we love conversation, Michael, man. Yeah. Like, we will go wherever you want to go. It's just an opportunity for us to just hang out and talk, man. That's what
you're sharing a lot of your own philosophies and beliefs, and you're younger than me, so that gives me hope for the future. Thank you very much, guys.
Good. Well, we appreciate it.
You have a lot of work to do. I've done most of mine.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, man. We won't waste any more of your time, but thank you so much.
To tidy up, do you have any questions, any last minute things, any gems you'd like me to
I
throw
will
in?
say something. I'll say real quick, Lance, because I wanted to say this, that I love George Pal, of course, Time Machine, and it's interesting you brought up the H.G. Wells short story because I'm a massive H.G. Wells fan.
Oh,
and
great writer.
That story was actually like a precursor to the Time Machine people, that was the Eloi and the Morlocks, that the Morlocks were the ones that ended up staying behind, and the Eloi were the ones that survived their blood there, went on to become the Eloi and stuff like that. And so then that always ties to George Pal, who's such a great director and discovered you. And so how cool was that just to meet George Pal? Like, a lot of people my age and younger don't know George Pal, but Time Machine's my favorite movie of all time, and my dad is a big George Pal. And so I just, knowing that was kind of who discovered you, I had to ask about.
That's a great question. He also did War of the Worlds for the younger nerds.
Yeah.
I had a little gift shop in Venice Beach, California on West Washington Boulevard. And across the street was an antique store that sold Ming Dynasty stuff for rich people. And it was all cool and groovy. They were wonderful, wonderful neighbors. And they were having a special sale, invitation only, for wealthy people who could afford what they had, which is no judgment in any way, shape, or form. This is some cool stuff. So my hippy dippy friends and others that we knew, we all dressed up as cool as we could. I actually bought a Moroccan black cape with
cool.
And had a white trim. It was from one of our neighbors in business, and they sold stuff. And I said, "Wow, that's really cool." So we're all being very arty farty, and we go across the street, and there's Bentleys and Rolls Royces and drivers dropping off all these people that are gonna, drop some serious cash and take home some really cool, one-of-a-kind stuff.
Yeah.
So we're mingling, having some wine, munching on cheese and crackers, and I hear this one of the owners, her father was George, and she had told George, "Hey, there's this guy across the street, and he kind of looks different." And George is going, and he actually walks over, he introduces himself, and he goes, "Are you an actor?" And I'm wearing a freaking robe. No, I thought we'd be cool and groovy, and this is what I'm wearing. And, I'm getting ready to go homestead in Alaska. I want to just get away from lower 48, and I'll meet the gal of my dreams, and I'll build a log cabin, and I do that kind of stuff, and I'll each up there, and I can still homestead. And he goes, "Well, would you please? You have the face that I need to be in my movie." I go, "Well, what do you want me to do?" He says, "One day, Harold Lloyd's estate, Doc Savage, the Man of Bronze, and you can be Juan Jose Morales, the coroner of Hidalgo." I go, okay. Does it pay? He says, "They'll get you in the Screen Actors Guild. You'll have a union card. I'll pay your dues for a year, and I'll pay you $400. I was pretty much broke, and I didn't have much money. I was living in the street in my van.
Yeah.
We were getting ready to give up our lease at the little store, which was an old house from the 1920s on the beach in Venice, and then I wouldn't be able to crash there anymore. So I'm going, yeah, and I did. And I worked for the day, and it was wonderful, and I managed to hit my mark and say my lines, and I had fun with it. And George always asked me, he said, I have a request. I go, "What's that, George?" He says, "If anybody ever asks you, tell them that George Powell discovered you." Oh, and I've always kept that promise.
I love that, man.
That's how it happened. Now, I thought that would be it. There's no more acting. What? I want to be more in front of people's faces. I want more people to. No, I want to just, be me without people going, "Well, what happened to you?" I mean, it should happen my whole life.
Yeah.
And yet it was a blessing. It turned into an opportunity, and I went with it for the last 40 years. Okay. Well, and I met some wonderful people like yourself, and we can get your thoughts, your feelings, philosophy, whatever, and life goes on. Well, George had a casting director. I never met him. One day I get a phone call at my friend's apartment, and he says, "Hey, I got a message for you." And it was would you please come to Culver Studios and meet Saul Zaentz, Milos Forman, Joel Douglas, and Michael Douglas? They're doing a movie called Cuckoo's Nest, and they think you could be a good lobotomy patient.
Wow.
I go, what? and it could all continued from there. But so that was my second day as an actor going up to Oregon for 127 days. But
fantastic.
Wow.
The only reason that all happened was because this is in my book. Previously, I had a friend whose house burnt down in Washington State on an island called Camano Island. It's beautiful in the Northwest Passage. And he had all the materials bought to build a 2-story log home. And I'd already been a woodsman, an expert with chainsaw and whatnot. So I grabbed a buddy in Berkeley. I hitchhiked to Berkeley, and my buddy was a professor from the university these days. Anyway, we went up there and we built his house. And I was going to stay and then go up to Alaska, but I was trying to buy a truck, and it had a gas leak, and it ignited my shirt, and I got some burns and fire. And I go, maybe I'll leave. And the day I left to go back to California was the day before a Social Security disability check arrived at my friend's house. So had I not been in the accident with the truck, this never would have happened.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
So life works in strange, mysterious ways.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Don't fight the current. Go with the flow, unless it's going in the really wrong direction.
Right.
But so be aware, be in tune, and it's okay to accept that which is benevolent. It's okay to say no thank you to negative gifts.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's interesting. One of my favorite books of all time is To Kiss a Stranger. It's the autobiography of Gene Wilder. And he, through the entire book, is that exact same philosophy. He says, had this not happened that day, it would not have led to this. And then he goes on, he's telling another story. Something happens, like say when he meets, just different things. He says, oh man, and had I not been there, had I not been sick and I hadn't gone to that hospital, I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't have done that. And it's just beautiful, because that's always been my personal philosophy. Everything happens for a reason. And so I love hearing your story, because it fits into that mental bit of inspiration that I keep in my head to keep that going on, that everything happens for a reason, and that we're here. I mean, I can have my story that leads us just to having this conversation today. Like, had I not met Keith Age, right? Like different things, and had done this and done that, we wouldn't be here having this remarkable conversation. So I appreciate you sharing that with us.
All right. And right back at you. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask you about how was it being in the Motley Crue videos?
Yeah, he's a Motley Crue boy.
Nothing deep and profound. Just
It's very, very deep and very profound. They're very, very talented musicians. I grew up in the 60s and 70s. I like all kinds of music. I didn't necessarily listen to their music, but once I was exposed to it, Smoking in the Boys Room, come on. The guys are wonderful. I had an agent that had the old Earl Flynn mustache. He's old, seasoned. I got him when I got to do Cuckoo's Nest. I got him through a friend of mine, Anthony Caruso. He was the Italian guy with a mole on his cheek during the Star Trek episode where they were on a planet and they were getting the TV signals from gangster movies. And he goes, "Hey, Spock, Kirk, I want one of them heaters."
Yeah.
That's Anthony Caruso. Well, and his son actually was in the extras union. He wound up being my driver for Doc Savage, which was another story. So I had an offer to do Cuckoo's Nest, and I couldn't get any agent to take me seriously. So I called Tony, and he said, "I'll hook you up with Lou." So Lou Deucer calls me up one day, and he goes, "Hey, kid, I got you a gig." Well, that sounds so funny coming from you. It sounds corny. He says, "Well, write this down. You're going to go to the studio, and it's a music video for a band." And I go, "Okay, that sounds great. What's the name of the band?" He goes, "Motley Crue." I go, "Okay." I said, "Okay, great." So I show up and I meet the guys, and they were big fans of Hills Have Eyes, and they were just super nice. And I thought they'd be hanging out either. We were in an auditorium with a stage and a curtain, and where the kids are dancing and whatnot. And I figured, well, I'll hang in my trailer, and they have their motorhomes, and they say, "Oh, no, come backstage with us," and which is cool. I met them and their gals and wives, and I just hung out with them. And the first thing we did was well, they kept the kids away because they had chaperones, and there was 2 ice like galvanized where you pour water, feed animals with, full of ice, and probably 5 cases of Corona, which is beer.
Wow.
And
yeah, the beer.
Probably 4 or 5 fifths of Jack Daniels. Well,
It sounds like.
So I had a friend that used to be a driver for. He was a photographer in the Pentagon. He worked for an admiral, and I said, "Hey, Johnny, you're going to be my designated driver." I'm doing a music video, and I'm gonna get messed up a little bit. I'm gonna be relaxed and have fun with these guys. So I had a couple of beers, a couple of shots, and we did the video, and it was just delightfully fun. And I mean, and they weren't Pollyannas. I mean, they played hard. They listened to their director. They weren't a bunch of babies. They weren't egotistical. They were all wonderful to work with, and I got to do Home Sweet Home with them.
Yeah. That video it had something because it was so popular and got played so much that it was the Motley Crue rule or something at MTV.
Well, now Vince Neil actually, I think it's in Circus. He opened up a little tiny restaurant. He got a hold of my manager one day, and they said, "Yeah, we'll fly out to Vegas and we'll do a little open." It was just a little tiny little restaurant he had going on with kind of a Harleys and whatnot going on, but. Vince got very healthy. He took some roids, whatever. He's all muscled up. He's looking good. I used to be in touch with Mick when he had issues with his arm and his hand. And I remember when we were doing Home Sweet Home, I think we were in on the Coast Highway in Southern California, and I forget whose house it was. It might have been Tommy's or Mick's. I can't remember. But there was a Harley that he had just got his Harley out of the shop, and I'm an old motorhead, so I love engines and motors and cars and stuff.
Yeah,
I can tune a carburetor. Anyway, I think he says, "Hey, you want to take my bike for a ride?" And so we fired it up, his Harley, and we had highway patrol, And I look at the officer and I go, "I'm gonna do this. Is that okay?" He goes, "Yeah, go for it." And I burned rubber and I hit second gear and I go, "Man, this thing's pushing about 90 horsepower."
Oh shit!
I used to ride a Norton. It had 65 horsepower. So I'm going, whoa. It wasn't set up for street like I would set up. I'm more of a cafe racer guy. But so anyway, I came back and I was like very humble pie and put. And he's like giving me the grin like, but they were delightful, professional, talented, and all around really good guys.
So Motley Crue, huh? Did you get to meet Dick Dastardly? That's
I don't remember.
With Muttley.
But I do remember at the end when Tommy pulls my wig off, we had decided to do something funny, and I said, "Hey, how about if I do this?"
Yeah.
And I mean, Vince fell off his seat. I mean, it was very popular on MTV On Demand.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then eventually the video was being aired without the ear wiggle. Now, what I'm going to tell you is fact because I was handed a day sheet for a ADR lab, which is where they add video and sound to various movies or music videos, for instance.
Yeah.
And I was doing a voiceover for Mojave Moon or some movie I did. And the guy said, "I knew you were coming in and I knew about the Motley Crue video. So here's a copy of my day's worksheet that says, do this, do this, do this, do this. Motley Crue smoking in the boys' room. Reinsert the ear wiggle 4 seconds."
Yeah.
So they cut the 4-second ear wiggle out, and people took on the phone and they complained to MTV so much that a phone call was made by MTV to a lab to say, "You have to edit the ear wiggle back in because viewers."
Oh wow! Oh, that is awesome.
I mean, really, So
Oh, that's fantastic.
so the secret is, here's how you do it. You look in the mirror and you're totally relaxed. and you pretend that you can't touch your ear, can't move your head, and you have a big plug of earwax. So you have to kind of find where it is and do one ear and then the other.
I know what I'm doing with the rest of my day.
If your dad or an uncle teach that to the young boys, and they will love you forever for it, and you'll piss off the parents. And it's just something goofy, and it's fun. So fun is good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great stopping point.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Can go to
I didn't know what to expect.
michaelberryman.com.
I just want to say this has been one of the better interviews I've ever done.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
so much. And we are very much looking forward to that book. And people can go to michaelberryman.com.
Yes.
Check out all the cool stuff you got going on there. And the book, I'm sure, will be on there as well.
The book is called "It's All Good," and on the cover, it's supposed to be, and it will be, me as a kid smiling. Like about 5 years old. I got a nice head of bushy curly hair before the skull surgery. But it's all about humanity rising. What's important, and remember, no matter what the highs and lows of your life are, situations, you're gonna get through it, and it's all good.
We love that.
Good,
and it should have one of those 3D images where you move it back and forth and your ears go wink.
Yeah, oh yeah, good. That's a good idea.
Okay. I'll make a note of that.
Good. Thank you, sir, so much for your time.
Yes, thank you.
I had a great
much.
time. You're some of the good ones.
All right, sir. You have a good evening, and much respect to your cat.
Yes.
Thank you. Kiki says hi.
We'll be drinking some bourbon forward. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
You take it
care.
easy.
Peace out.
Thank you, sir.
Peace out. And with that, dear friends, we come to the end of another delightfully disturbing episode of Misters of the Dark. As always, thank you for listening. Thank you to the Fearscape Media Network, and thank you to Corey Adams and Ashley Jones Adams from Nothing Wrong for our musical theme. And I believe a thanks is in order for you, Mr. Berryman. And I know you tried your best, but I believe in regard to this acting bug, we're just going to have to wait it out.
Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Oh, now, Lance, now, just calm down.
Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Oh, God, Lance, stop pointing that sword at me.
Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Lance! You little bastard!
Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. Wait, I don't have a name.
No shit, Sherlock. And now, thanks to you, I have no left arm.
That is just like you. I'm miraculously cured, but everyone has to drop everything they're doing because you don't have a left arm.
That was my killing arm. But at least I don't have to listen to those horrendous Jerry Lewis impressions anymore. Where's the sewing kit?
Underneath our Don Johnson records. But before we go, dear friends, I'll leave you with this. All acting is nudity. It's all vulnerable and a little bit scary. Good night.
Thanks for helping me sew this up, Michael Berryman.